Welcome in, everybody, to the Power Option Podcast. Just running the damn ball from west to east. Did I say that right? Is it east to west? No,
yep.
It's
west to east.
I started and it didn't feel right, but regardless, we're establishing the run game. That's what we need to talk about. We're here.
Okay, so here's the thing: after you screwed it up that one time, you've gotten into your own head because you didn't have a problem with it before.
No,
and since then, it's been directly on your mind.
Every
time we
time.
start.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because what we're doing is establishing the run game. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. So we're here back into it, talking about Week 10. It was a light week, relatively light week. I mean, some big games, some marquee games for sure, but relatively chill week. I know you were doing the 24-hour stream, so you were kind of picking and choosing, but I think we got some good games to look at. I'm excited to go through what was happening because we did have some upsets too.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, the thing is, I didn't get a chance to pay a lot of attention to it because of the stream. I had some games just on with no audio, which is hard, especially in a quad box, to try to keep track of what was going on, which is my first mistake. But I was getting a few updates during the stream, and, I think I can say that the games were, I mean, it started to sort things out as we expected. We kind of expected that we're going to start sorting things out. And since we got the first playoff rankings yesterday,
shit,
the games have some counterbalance. The importance of these games became apparent as we got those rankings.
Yes.
We're getting to an exciting time. And finally, the only thing we have as a country to argue about now at this point for a while. So great,
which is good. We can start to, or at least you can start to care about rankings. I've been noted on this podcast to constantly care about them. You've been taking the pacifist argument, pacifist side of things in regards to the rankings, but now you're locked in. You gotta make a decision. You gotta talk about things. So we're in it now.
Yeah, now it's real. Now these things have real consequences, and most importantly, where you start in this thing is a big deal. Like, for example, not to jump too far ahead, but BYU was 9th in the rankings. Okay, BYU's undefeated. BYU has better wins. It has actual wins against CFP ranked teams, unlike Tennessee, unlike Penn State. So their resume is really good.
Yeah, they blew the pants off of Kansas State. Yeah, they got good wins. Yes.
Yeah. Now their overall strength of schedule isn't great, which I get it.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring this all up is that Boise State is at 12. If Boise State wins out and BYU takes a loss against a really good team, and BYU still wins the conference, BYU might not get one of the top 4. If that works out, because of where Boise is now and where BYU is, Boise is just going to go up from here. No matter how good Boise and BYU are compared to each other, the number ranking next to their name is going to determine more about where they end up than the quality of the team, right? And so that's why this is important, and also why it's frustrating. But we'll get to it. We'll get to it in a minute. I don't want to jump ahead.
No, and that's fine. I do want to. Oh, I don't know. Maybe we just start talking about the rankings first. I mean, we can get into games, but it was a light week. Maybe we just go rankings first. Let's just get into it.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, let's talk about the rankings here. Let's talk about the college football rankings. Now, I have the college football rankings and the AP top 25 next to each other, so I'll just note when there's major difference without going through both completely. Let's go from the bottom up, since we are kind of doing a March Madness-y who's in, who's out situation.
Yeah.
Our bottom 10, and I shouldn't even say bottom 10 of the top 25, but the last 10 teams in the top 25 in the college football playoff rankings is Army, Missouri at 24, Clemson at 23, Louisville at 22, Washington State at 21, Colorado at 20, Kansas State at 19, Pittsburgh at 18, Iowa State at 17, Ole Miss at 16, and LSU at 15. So these ones matter a little bit in that there's a couple of these teams that aren't totally out of it. The race for the last spot's kind of hanging out in there, depending on who you win. Most of these teams have some important matchups ahead of them. I don't necessarily have a problem with much on here. I'm happy that Washington State is on there because they could have been screwed because they just can't have a great strength of schedule with what their schedule is.
Yeah,
Louisville deserves to be on there. Yeah. Louisville deserves to be on there and ahead of Clemson, which is fine. It's fine for Clemson to be on there. They against the teams they're better than, they really whip their ass, but they're not great, and they probably don't deserve to make the playoff unless they win out. So I'm okay. Like, Washington State is frustrating to me because I think that they should have a shot to get to the playoff and they just can't. They had to go undefeated. Colorado's on there kind of because they're Colorado, but that's fine. They've had a really good season. A ranking is probably deserved for the overall breadth of their season, and if they win out, I'm fine with that. Kansas State's a little disappointing. Pitt is fine. Iowa State is fine. Ole Miss and LSU are fine. Fine.
Yeah, I think from 20 to 15, I'm okay with. Colorado, I understand it. I don't care. I don't know if they realistically deserve the 20 spot. I'm fine with it happening, but right. I don't like. I could. Somebody could pretty easily come to me and give me a debate for them to not be there, and I would say, yeah, right. What are they doing at 20? How much does it matter? I don't know. But everybody else, Kansas State, Pitt, Iowa State, Mississippi, LSU, that all feels fine. The Clemson and Missouri situations, Louisville, Clemson, Missouri, Army. I think Army deserves to be at the 21 spot above Washington State, Louisville, Clemson, Missouri, because they're 8-0 and because of what they are. I think that the committee is saying that they don't believe in them. That's fine. As we were talking pre-show about how Navy got housed by Notre Dame and then went on to lose to Rice. I think Army is the best of the military schools. But the likeliness of them going to Notre Dame in a couple of weeks and winning are pretty low. So fine, if the committee is saying we just don't believe in it, I understand it, but like. This is what I want to pose to you. And it happened in the AP, and I was salty about it all year. And I think that the college football playoff ranking is different, but I want to get your opinion on this. Is like, why is Clemson here? And I don't have a good argument for somebody else being here. I'm sure that there's somebody that's just outside of the top 25 that you could pose to me that I would say it's good to hear. But like, why are we dealing with a 6-3 Louisville, a 6-2 Clemson, and a 6-2 Missouri? Missouri is ass. They're butthole. And so like, I don't understand it, and especially them being ahead of Army. Like are they there because the AP was set, and then the rankings, the committee said that they needed to keep them in? What's the purpose of having this group not knock down collectively a spot and an Army above?
So I think it's threefold. I should note that in the AP poll, Army is 18th. So the AP voters have a lot more.
Yeah. See, that's what I mean.
Determined better than Army is. But this is what it is. And it's a little bit of what I already talked about, but if you are a 2-loss school in the Power 4 and you were expected to be good, you're going to be ranked when we get to 8 games. That's just where we are. If you're a 2-loss, especially if you're a Big Ten and SEC school, if you're a 2-loss school that was expected to be good, you are going to stay ranked. If you're a 2-loss school that wasn't expecting to be good, then you're going to have one of two things is going to affect you. You could be Colorado, where you have superstars and you're building currently at the right time, versus being Duke, where you don't have anything going for you and you're not building, even though you only have 2 losses, and you're not even considered to be on the ranking. Now, here's what's both nice and what's tricky. As the college football kind of melds down, more of these 2-loss teams are going to be playing each other at some point in one of these conferences, right? I think that one of the nice things about all this is all of these 2-loss teams have the opportunity to win out and then deserve their spot where it doesn't bother me right now, right? The trick is that one of these 2-loss teams that's on this list, and I'm going to just include, which I haven't got to, but Texas A&M at 14 and Alabama at 11. Mm-hmm. One of these 2-loss teams is very likely going to make the playoff. Right, one of these 2-loss teams is gonna, because they're probably gonna play and beat one of the teams ahead if they win out. Like one of the teams in the top 10. Almost all of these teams play somebody very good, or will by the time we get to that spot, right? Which I think we're okay with.
I think so too.
If Alabama beats, I don't know if there's any of the teams above them ahead, but they beat Georgia, right? Alabama beat Georgia, right? If they happen to play, let's say Texas in the championship or something, whatever, and they beat Texas on their way out, you go, oh yeah, that's a team that could win a tournament. It could win a championship tournament, because you got some teams that are like, hey, they've earned a spot, and then you have some teams that are like, hey, they could win a championship tournament. In that case, Alabama, even though when they're bad, they've been very bad, and they have one of the worst losses, they also beat Georgia. And yeah, Georgia was coming back at the end, but if they have Georgia and like Texas on their resume, or Georgia and somebody else, then I'm okay with it, as long as they haven't lost again, right? As long as they went out.
I definitely agree with you, but like in regards to the rankings, and I'll just roll through from 14 to 9. So it's Texas A&M is 14, Southern Methodist University is 13, SMU, Boise State is 12, Alabama is 11, Notre Dame is 10, BYU is 9. I wanted to go through that because Alabama is above both Boise State and SMU, who both of them are only one loss. Now, to your point, like the games that they have won are reputable. Like the Georgia game is a reputable win, but the losses are worse. Is it worse than Boise State's wins? I don't know, because Boise State, look, I think that the Mountain West is legitimate, but I don't know if it's anymore. If it's so legitimate that you can say, is it better than an SEC squad? Probably not. And I'm okay with saying that. But like, if we're looking at schedules up until this point, and we're talking about like 2 losses, then in my mind, there's no reason for Boise State and SMU to be below Alabama based on the schedule. I'm fine.
I don't know, man.
I understand it, but it's a silly thing to me because of how bad the Alabama loss is, and like, why are they not closer to Texas A&M? And like, SMU has done everything at this point to deserve the spot that they have, and I think further at Boise State as well, with not only quality wins throughout, they beat a very good UNLV team, and they have a player on their side similar to Miami, who's way up the list, that is really shaking things up for them. So it's like, it's frustrating because like Alabama should be ranked, but I don't agree with them being at 11.
Yeah.
Like, if they get
here's my problem with that. And my one problem with that is that I sit here and I feel very confident that right now, if Boise State or SMU played Alabama's schedule, they would have 2 losses or more. I'm just very confident about that, especially considering Boise State and SMU's losses.
I'm with you, but if Boise State or SMU's play Alabama, the chances of them winning that game are high to me.
Yeah, but I don't know that they're over 50%. Well, here's the thing. You may believe they're over 50%, but I promise you that Vegas would have Alabama at least an 8-point favorite on a neutral field against both of those teams.
On a neutral.
I don't know that you're wrong. I think that that would suggest that the books, I would be shocked if the books put one of these 2 teams. Now, of course, the book sometimes screws up just because of the name on the helmet, but I don't think it's unfair to say that there are a reasonable amount of people that think Alabama is better than both of those teams.
I just don't. At this point, I don't know if like. Maybe I'm too into this, but like, I don't agree. I think Boise State and SMU have shown to this point that they have the equipment to beat an Alabama team that has looked shaky. We can talk about the Georgia game, sure, but like, they should have lost that game. Like, they won it, and they won it off of a freak athlete who's doing his freakish thing. We can do it, but since that time, Williams has not been as crazy than as he showed up in that game. Like, yes, he's been quality, and yes, he's 19 years old, and yes, it's crazy, but like, I don't think that he's better than Genty, and I think that Boise State goes to Alabama. I think they win that game.
Yeah, I can't see like look, Boise is tricky, right? Because they played Oregon close. They played Oregon super close, and everybody else they've handled, but You know, that I'd look at that UNLV game. I watched that UNLV game on the road, and I just thought,
yeah, they weren't awesome. You're right.
UNLV's defense is not great, and they did a really good job of kind of shutting stuff down. And so I don't know, man, but I think that I am fine with the general area they're in.
I'm also fine with that. At least
it's safe to say that, yes, we absolutely think that there is a circumstance where Boise State beats Notre Dame, and there's a circumstance where Boise State beats Alabama, and Boise State maybe in the BYU, but I don't even think so. Boise State, SMU in that range, right? I can't think that right now. Oh, I guess people do think because maybe they're not sure, but right now, I think Indiana is better than all of those teams. Clearly, Indiana is the line that all of those teams should need to cross, and I don't think any of them do.
But you're saying that also to Alabama, though, right?
Yes. Oh, I'm saying that to Alabama.
Okay. Yeah.
Well. Yes.
So
I'm saying.
Yes.
I think Indiana beats Alabama clean, clear. Indiana
agree.
is a better football team than Alabama.
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah, and I think they're better. Right. I think they're as good as BYU. I think they're better than Notre Dame. I definitely think they're better than Alabama. Yeah. I think they're better than Boise State. I think they're SMU. And to your earlier,
and I think they're better than Tennessee and Penn State. Also, by the way,
I think
that's separate.
I think so too. I think so. I think you're right. And I'll finish my point after this. But just to round out the rest of the 25, we have BYU at 9, which I said, Indiana at 8, Tennessee at 7, Penn State at 6, Texas at 5, Miami at 4, Georgia at 3, Ohio State at 2, Oregon at 1. And all of that I'm fine with. You can mix that up a bit, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think Indiana and BYU are basically the same team at this point. I mean, maybe Indiana is better. If you want to say that, I'm okay with it. Or if you want to say the vice versa, I'm also okay with it. I think Notre Dame is. Yeah. I think Notre Dame deserves to be in above Alabama, Boise State, SMU. And what I was going to say is, to the thing that you've been talking about in weeks past is that a lot of this stuff is going to get sussed out. Like Boise State.
Right.
Boise State is. Should remain clean throughout the rest of their Mountain West schedule. They basically beat the teams that they've needed to. As long as they win the Mountain West Conference Championship game, then they deserve to be in the spot. I think that they're the best of the group of 5. I think it's clear. And SMU as well. If SMU makes it, so now it gets a little sticky. I think if SMU continues the run that they've been on and they go into the ACC championship and win that, Alabama should not be above them. I without a doubt, SMU deserves the hop. Alabama is not good enough above that.
But here's the thing, they'll get a bye. If SMU wins out at this point, they'll get a bye,
and that's cool.
They'll be fine.
Yes, totally, and that makes sense to me. So again, to your point, like things will get sussed out. It will be okay.
Yeah.
But yes,
mostly it'll get sorted. But it is important where these teams start, because that's going to kind of determine how far they can move up and down.
Right.
But for the most part, you're going to have some. Seeding is going to be rough. Like seeding is going to be bad.
It's going to be weird.
Just be prepared now that seeding is going to be shitty. There's no way they're going to get the seeding right.
No.
But I don't think we'll have too much frustration about who basically the 11th team is. Like if Alabama ends up making it over the rest of these teams, like if you throw out Boise and you throw out SMU, and I'm just like, okay, if Alabama gets it over Texas A&M and LSU and Ole Miss, it's fine.
I think
none
so too.
of those teams are particularly better.
Yeah,
right?
the Georgia win is reputable.
Iowa State. If you get it over Iowa State, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It means Iowa State would have had to lose again anyway. So it's like, all right, whatever. Pitt, whatever. They're not, Kansas State's got bad losses. Colorado's not that good.
No, they're not good.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, okay, when it really comes down to it, there's going to be a chance where somebody's going to get a home first-round game that shouldn't. And that's going to be frustrating. And somebody is going to get screwed when it comes to the bye, that number 4 bye. Somebody's going to get screwed at some point. And that's going to be probably the worst thing, is losing that bye. But when we get to the end, I will feel fairly confident that the best team in college football will be represented at the end of the playoff as better than it ever has been.
Yeah, that's definitive. I mean, yeah, we are not in a scenario where like if BYU runs the gambit for the first time in their history, those sons of bitches will be able to legitimately say that the national championship. I know. Look. I know that we have 14 listeners or whatever. And I know most of them are not BYU lovers, but for the chance that we have a BYU listener here, like you guys talk all that national championship trash. My whole life, it was just like, well, what does Utah have? Do they have a national championship? It's not. It's the most patty cake bullshit national championship shit, like imaginative bullshit thing that it's so silly. And so, but because we were in a system that was ridiculous. It was about news and it was about rankings and it was all of those things. Even and the same thing for those USC fans out there who you know they have a national championship and then they went and lost to Mac Brown. And you know, as much as we love Mac Brown on this pod, like they went and lost to it. But the year before, they were national championship because of these semantic-y bullshit things. And so, what I agree with you, it's going to be upsetting to me if somebody like SMU, really, it's just SMU. If SMU doesn't get into the playoff for whatever reason, but if they win the ACC, then they will, and they'll have a bye, and that'll be great. It will be frustrating. However, then that means that they couldn't get through their ACC schedule, and they weren't good enough to get into the situation that we're in at the end of the year. And even if they do make it, are they good enough to win the 3 games that are required to be what they are? So yes, this is unprecedented territory. It's fantastic. It's great. I mean, even for Oregon at 1, who I think there's a lot of people in the world. I was talking to you, and I was talking to you on Saturday where I met a guy. I was shopping. I met a guy at Dick's Sporting Goods, and he was like his hot take for that day was that Oregon was going to lose to Michigan, which I was like that is the hottest take I've heard. Like I'm actually, my temperature actually rose from hearing that. But I think it's a legitimate case because I think Oregon is the legitimate best team in the nation at this point. I'm fine with if that's what we're going to say, but also they've been weird as shit, you know? And a playoff, regardless of bye, will suss that out as well. So it's okay.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, look, right now, if the playoffs ended up the way it is now, if BYU would have to beat the winner of Boise State, Ohio State in a neutral field.
And that's not easy.
And then play the winner of, let's just say the higher ranked team wins, the winner of Oregon, Tennessee, right?
Right.
And then they have to, if they win that game, then they play the winner of Georgia, Miami, or, you know, Georgia, Texas, or whatever.
Right.
Right. That's boom. You're the national champion. Like,
there it is.
You did it.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
You faced all the challenges.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Nobody can take anything away from you.
No.
With that, you know, like nobody can.
No.
Like, you did it.
Yeah, you did it. And you were the best team, as you know, a statistic that it's not a legitimate one, but a statistic that we talk about, or I talk about a lot, is were you the best team today? And that's what's going to be required of the playoff, you know, and we have even more than, because normally it would have just been 2 games. Oh, I say normally, but you know, over the last 5 years, it's been 2 games. But then even before that, it was just did you play your schedule to the point where the voters said it was okay or whatever? And so now, not only do you have to be the best team today, but you have to do that. I mean, from the farthest end of the playoff, you have to do that 3 times. You know, now that doesn't apply to everybody, but Oregon is not going to get a schlub. Whoever walks into the neutral field, and they're not going to be able to play this in Eugene either, which is, you know, to your point, it's like you can't. It's not going to just be a rocking stadium where you have all the home things. You rode a bus there. Like Oregon is going to have to decide that they are really the number 1 team and win a game, you know, and like it could look like Ohio State and they could be on the other side of it instead of having some loophole ass play where they figured things out, you know. So here we are. We're in it.
Like here's the thing that's in play. Let's just say Ohio State, right? Ohio State gets in this position. They don't play in the conference championship game, or they lose a rematch to Oregon, which kind of messes my point up. But it's fine. Let's just pretend somehow they don't make it to the conference championship game, even though they only have 1 loss. I don't even know if that's possible, but let's just say it is. Right? Ohio State beats Boise State, then BYU, an undefeated BYU, let's say, even if they're, you know, an undefeated BYU, then they beat Oregon, then they beat
Texas,
Georgia,
Georgia,
or Texas, or somebody, right?
Yeah. Like that's
they have they may have the claim to be the greatest champion of all the champions.
Like in all time.
That's about as good as it could be.
Yeah, you can't
in a schedule.
Yes, 100% agree with you. Like I think that the 06 USC team, even though they lost to Texas, like I think between Reggie Bush, having 2 Heisman winners, and there was a point in time when we were playing that NCAA football game where when we were playing, we played little tournaments at our parents' house, and you could not play. You were not allowed to play as USC. That's how good that they were. It was out like you couldn't. They were so much better. Reggie Bush was a freak. All that kind of stuff. I think that's one of the best teams, or maybe a 2013, 2015 Alabama, maybe 2019 LSU, whatever. Like we have these great, these pivotal teams throughout history. Black shirt.
The
Nebraska.
answer is 95 Nebraska.
Sure.
95 Nebraska
I knew you were going to go there. So
I figured you left it out just so I could say that.
I was getting there.
He went out of his way.
No, I was getting there. I knew it was coming up. So, but whatever. But like they never had to run a gambit like this. Like you didn't have to deal with that. Like what you're talking about, dealing with an undefeated BYU in a second round, having to at a neutral field, and then go play somebody like Georgia or Texas or whatever to really decide if you're the one. Like nobody in history at this point, nobody in history has ever done that. So I think that's where we're at.
And I don't know. There's probably when the games were smaller and so great teams played each other, great teams more, maybe. But it's as good. It's going to be as good as it gets in the modern time.
Yeah, I mean, really
unarguable. Like unless you've got other teams in the past just blowing people out, like whoever wins this thing has got to be a machine, which is why I'm okay with like a 2-loss team. Like, hey, you got 2 losses, but you run the gamut at the end. Yeah. You give everybody L's. You had a chance to face it off in games that really matter. Like, fine.
Yep, totally. Well, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's go through the games that happened that got us to this point. We've talked so much about the major teams that I'll probably just note those games quick, since we've already talked about it. But there were some lower level games that need to be noted. The first one I want to mention is it was a Thursday night game, I think.
I think it was Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night. Jacksonville State versus Liberty.
Night.
Oh, it was a Wednesday. Right. It's a Wednesday night game. Jacksonville State beats Liberty on the road, 31-21. An impressive win. Liberty finally gets super eliminated out of us having to see them in the playoff. As much as I like their coach and I like their quarterback, they're just insufferable. And Jacksonville State has been on a run now recently. They if they would have been like this all year, they really ruined their own lives by not being like this all year. But when you can beat Liberty by just having Trey Stewart have 229 yards on 26 carries, 4 touchdowns, and only have to go 6 of 10 at quarterback, and you can win a game like that, like you're living.
Honestly, it's true, and it really is unfortunate where their losses came. Like we were dealing with a Jacksonville State team that started the year 0-3. They have Coastal Carolina at home. They lose pretty definitively, 55-27.
Yeah,
they lose to Louisville, which
is fine. Yeah,
it's a fine loss. If they have one loss and it's to Louisville, that's fantastic. They're a ranked team. Yeah. They're a legitimate squad. But then you go to Eastern Michigan and you lose by 4 points, and then that's really what does it, which is unfortunate because since then they've been freaking rolling. Like they've been doing
Then they pushed the button and they scored. They won by over 30, by over 30, by over 30, by 22, by 10 against a good Liberty team on the road. Yep. They could win out. They could fuck around and win out and be disappointed in their season, even though they shouldn't be, because they could win the conference. They very easily could win the conference.
Yeah, and hopefully that's their. We're obviously we started this whole thing with the college football playoff. That's the aspirational thing. That's where we want. Right. That's you and I are big fans of Group of 5 stuff. That's I think a lot of the reason that we even have this podcast today is because you and I like to talk about the ends of college football, and so it's like we could. It would be great if we were dealing with the Jacksonville State team that is looking as good as Boise State or whatever. But if we sort of push that aside and just look at what they will become, they win the Conference USA championship. They just beat a Liberty team who last year basically rolled house on the Conference USA, and they could go to the Conference USA championship and win it as what are they, 3 years in now to FBS football or something like that?
This is their second year.
So I mean, like that's
second
crazy.
year.
Yeah, which is huge. So I'm excited about it. Their losses are a little unfortunate, but they could end this year in a very fun way, and I'm excited for the conference championship game.
Yeah, they're obviously a different team now than they were before.
Right.
For sure.
Sometimes you got to build.
It out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to their first ever Division I football game last year.
Oh yeah.
Against UTEP. I went to that game in Jacksonville. It just sits inside a mountain range. It's a little podunky little town. Other than that, but it sits in not a mountain range. It sits in a forest. And so I'm just like the GPS is like I'm just gonna be there, and I'm like seriously because I'm just on a highway in a forest, and then boom, town. Here we are. We're here.
Welcome.
Yeah, and the stadium sits on like a hill. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful campus, but it was 1.3 million degrees. Early September, just hot as balls.
Yeah.
Out there. And UTEP wasn't great, but it was still fun. It was a fun experience. There wasn't a lot of people there, but I sat in with the UTEP families, and that was fun. It was a fun thing. It was a cool little thing to say I was part of. So.
Yeah, and they're building, which is cool.
I'm a Rich Rod fan,
so
I just like that offense. I like what he does. So good for him. This seems like a good match.
Totally.
Ohio State 20, Penn State 13. Not much to say except Penn State can't beat Ohio State. Ohio State did just enough to win. Ohio State's offense is not
shaky.
It's tough because Penn State's not. It's not that Penn State's bad. Like the problem is. This is all obscured by the fact that Penn State loses this game, and so we think, oh, yeah, Penn State's not very good. No, Penn State was good. Were they top 5 good? No, obviously not. But they're good. Ohio State's just everything Penn State is plus some points.
Yes,
right?
that's a great way to put it.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
Penn State is being the 8th best team in the league, being the 11th to 8th best team every year. It's not that bad of a gig. You know what I mean? Like I know people are frustrated, but it's not that bad of a gig.
No, and if we, it's unfortunate. I like Franklin a lot. I like Penn State. I like Happy Valley. I like State College. Like there's so many things to like about Penn State. Thank you. You're welcome. Like all of that stuff is awesome, and I want them to be good, but he just can't. He has these hills, and now I mean before obviously Harbaugh's Michigan was dangerous to him. Also Ryan Day's Ohio State. Right. It continues to be a problem for him, and he just can't get there. And so it's unfortunate, but assuming they win out now that they've taken it in the teeth a bit, and the rest of their season's not bad. Washington, they go to Purdue, go to Minnesota, they have Maryland at home and Washington at home. Like that's a win out type of situation. You go into a playoff situation with one loss. You have another shot at this whole thing. This is as good of a scenario as Franklin could have asked for. I mean, what I know the Penn State faithful wanted was a win against the big boys, but he can't figure it out. For whatever reason, Aller is fine. Their defense is reputable. It's a good. They had Will Howard shooken. That's what I was saying. Like Howard was shook, and he's not. I don't know if I think Howard is. Probably he's closer to Beck than he is to Gabriel, for example. But yeah, sure. He's good enough. He's good enough to win.
He's close to Dart. He's
close to Dart. Yeah, for sure. And so it's unfortunate because I like Franklin. I like Penn State. I like what's going on. But Franklin just can't get it out. But he's now in a world where he can check his boxes. And he can cross his T's and dot his I's. I don't think he will. I think he loses again. I think they go into the playoff, he loses again. It's unfortunate, but I don't have any. If we look at the tape, there's nothing in the history of Franklin at Penn State that leads me to believe that he's got a chance to win a first round game, a second round game. Like he probably can't do it. It's unfortunate, but it is what.
Yeah, I think that I think if they're a home seed, they'll be able to beat any of the teams that they're seeded above, right? Because they're going to be. They'd be a 6 or a they'd be a 6 or a 7 or something. They'd play 11 or 12. I think they'd be fine, right? I think that's a game that I feel much more confident in them winning. I just don't know. After that is when I'm just like, okay, you could get out coached. But if this Penn State team figured out a way to win it all, I'd be fine with it. I just don't think they have it.
I don't think so either. And honestly, even if we look at first round stuff, like if they play Notre Dame, it's sketchy. If they play BYU, it's super sketchy.
Sure.
If they play Indiana, it's sketchy. Even if they play Boise State, I think they beat Boise State, but it's not easy. Like they don't just roll. You know, if they play SMU, they're going to have problems. Like they have some serious stuff that they're going to have to figure out. I think they can, but then we get into the second round, and all of a sudden, I don't know if they can. Like you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the SMU of it all would be really interesting if they make it.
Yeah.
It would be just really interesting to know how that goes.
I agree.
Duke 31, Miami 53. It's not even necessarily notable at this stage, but it's just Miami's 9-0. They handled a Duke team that's, not great. Miami's defense is what's going to keep them from being national champion.
Yeah.
But they can score as many points as you want to see sometimes, and so that will make them interesting, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think so the first half they're losing in the first half. But now in college football, it's a thing that you and I have talked about before. It's like, can you finish a game? And that's the difference between good teams and bad teams, I think, in a lot of cases.
They flipped a switch.
They really did. And so it's like, then they go into the third quarter, and I remember watching the third quarter and thinking to myself, Duke, if they figure things out, they might have a chance here. And then all of a sudden, Miami went, nah, we got those boosters on, and we're done with you.
Yeah.
Like I'm happy you were around, but bye bye. And then Cam Ward did what he thinks. Now I keep bringing this up just because it's a similar scenario to me. That at one point, look, I know that I talk some shit about Ole Miss and their dumbass head coach and his trashness, but the guy that I hate even more than Lane Kiffin is Gene Chizik. I think Gene Chizik is the worst coach of college football in history, and he has a national championship. And the reason he has a national championship is because he caught Cam Newton when Cam Newton was hot, when it was hot fire. So I think that Ward has notes of that. I don't think that the total of this Miami team is as the total of that Auburn team. I think that the coaching staff is better because fuck Gene Chizik. But I could see Cam Ward making everybody so uncomfortable and scoring all the points, especially like against like an Ohio State, against an Oregon team, that just doesn't know how to deal with him or whatever. Like all of a sudden shit gets wild. I don't think that that's real. And I know I'm bringing up a weird comparison, but like at this point, Miami is doing everything based on this very specific offense with a terrible defense, not a terrible defense, but not a great defense, and they're winning and they're 9-0 inside of an ACC that is beating itself up. Like this ACC is attacking itself. Duke is good enough.
The top of the ACC is good. I mean, they're all solid. So.
Yeah, and Duke is good enough to beat this Miami team. They didn't. But they on another day they could have, for sure. So it's interesting.
I don't know if I know about that, but they've had a good year.
Okay, all right, I'm fine with that. I'm fine. I'll roll it back. You're probably right. I don't know if Duke has enough, but it's the Cam Ward experiment, everything that's going on. Like he's just so comfy back there in the pocket. Watching him play quarterback is so fun. I threw up the sky cam when I was watching this game, and it was just like he just hikes the ball and then he's just like standing back. He's just chilling.
Right.
He's just watching the whole field, doing whatever. And then somebody sniffs at him. They start running, and he just goes, "Oh, okay, sorry, I got to move." And then he moves, and he throws the ball, and then all of a sudden they're scoring. So he's interesting, man. He's super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's thrown a lot of touchdowns. They've got a good offense. He runs the offense pretty well. Not much more than you can ask for than that. So.
No, that's perfect.
And that's why that's why they're top 4, top 5. That's why, I mean, they absolutely can beat anybody. Just they got to put in more effort offensively because they're not, like they seem more like if Tennessee was in the ACC, they'd have the exact same record. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, that's bold. That's a bold statement. I see where you're going. I don't know if I agree with you, but I see what you're saying.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's see. We're going to skip Ole Miss and Arkansas. It's a fine win, but it doesn't matter much to talk about.
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. All right, let's see. Where is my next game here? There's a space. There's a big space. Oregon, Michigan. Oregon won. They were better than Michigan. I mean,
yeah, they're doing the thing. I think they're really they're doing the number one team in the nation thing. Like Michigan is not good, so for them to lose as much as they lost is good. And Ohio, I'm sorry, Oregon needs to continue to win big like this. I mean, it doesn't matter because you got to win the Big Ten. You win the Big Ten, it doesn't really matter whatever you're going to do. But like they beat Michigan, they have Maryland at home, they go to Wisconsin, they have Washington at home. Those are all based on what they've been up until this point. Those are all games that they win. They go into the Big Ten championship game, and then hopefully they get things done. But at this point, if you're telling me that Oregon is definitively the number one seed in the nation, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else has done the combination of the win plus just demolishing other teams.
Yes, nobody really.
Late at the end than anybody. It's hard to say anybody else looks like a better team than Oregon, even if you think other teams are going to beat them, which is not unfair. I think if they line up against Georgia tomorrow, I wouldn't be shocked if Georgia was the favorite.
I
Oregon has earned the number one spot.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Finally, I guess I shouldn't say finally we're done with that because he still has a chance to get back into it. But Louisville 33, Clemson 21. A nice, good, tough win by a good Louisville team. Not a great one, but a good Louisville team over a Clemson team that it was only beating up on the bad teams in the ACC. And I didn't want to take that away from them. I didn't want to take that away that they were beating up on bad teams in the ACC, but it came to roost after Louisville beat them.
Yeah, and but like we had talked about this last week, where I said like begrudgingly, I said that Clemson is legitimate, and I thought at the time when we were speaking last week prior to this game that they were the best team in the ACC. I thought that they have the better, whatever talent, the better coaching situation than Miami or whatever. But then to lose to Louisville like they did, it means that they are as shaky as the Georgia loss made them look at the beginning of the year. After the Georgia loss, they went and had a run, deservedly so. But like Louisville is a legitimate squad. Like they're a good, very good squad,
super solid team.
But if you're going to be real deal Holyfield, then you should beat this team. And so
you got to beat that team.
Yeah, so this loss makes me think that like Miami, SMU goes to whoever goes in the ACC championship game. I don't even know if Clemson can get there. I think that they can get there, but whoever if Clemson plays somebody in the ACC championship game, and they have over the course of the end of their year, they got Va Tech, they got Pitt, they go to Citadel, they got South Carolina. So they got pretty patty cake sort of stuff this year. I mean, maybe Va Tech beats them. That would be fun. I don't know if that's the thing, but that would be fun. But like if they could figure out a way to get things done, but I think this loss makes me think that they're vulnerable. Like Klubnik is who we thought he was, Dabo is who we thought he was, and that means that Miami and SMU, in my mind, are the better ACC teams and can go and house them.
Yeah, I think clearly they are. Now, there is a Clemson team that we've seen this year that could beat those teams.
Yeah.
But it's less likely than the Clemson team that we saw lose to really good teams. That Clemson team that loses to really good teams loses to those really good teams.
Totally.
So fine.
Yep.
Yeah. Texas Tech beat Iowa State 23-22. Texas Tech's had a nice season. I don't think this is a big deal because I don't think we thought Iowa State was some undefeated team. It's just notable because it makes it so there's really no shot for two teams out of the Big 12 in the playoff, which I'm generally fine with this year.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It's unfortunate, but it's fine.
Yeah, it is a bummer because I'm just a fan of Iowa State. I like I can't remember his name, but I like
Matt Campbell.
Yeah. I like what they've been doing at Iowa State. I've just enjoyed it over the time that he's been there, and it's cool to see them. It would be cool to see them undefeated at this point, but they weren't impenetrable, and just them. It's unfortunate to lose by a point to make it so that we're not going to have two teams out of the Big 12. But I don't know if the Big 12 is I would rather have. I don't know how I feel about this statement. I'm going to make it, but I don't know if I love it. I would rather have a situation where we have like SMU get in versus Iowa State team who sneaks past Texas Tech and makes it in as the other Big 12 seed when they go into the first round and get absolutely just blown out, or they go to the Big 12 championship and just get housed by BYU or something. Like they were never going to be the real deal team. Like it just wasn't really in the cards for them. So it's unfortunate they lost, especially by 1 point. But I would be lying if I said that I wasn't expecting it at some point.
Yeah, I think this team, they lost because they were a team that was going to lose.
Yes.
So fine. Yeah. Whatever.
The rest of their schedule is not. They have Kansas, which I bet they win. Then they go to they have Cincinnati at home. They go to Utah. Then they have Kansas State. So they probably still lose one of those games.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that they're better than those teams, but they've been suspect enough at this point that I could see them just getting bounced by Kansas State or something.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. That's fine. The evening game of the week was Pitt 25, SMU 48. We've talked about SMU a few times. That was a big win against an undefeated Pitt team that might not necessarily have been great, but was certainly in the top half of a strong ACC, and they fairly well dominated. They looked really good. That's a strong offensive team that can do a lot of different things. And I think they're a really good team. I think that their defense is kind of ACC average, which is not great, but I think that they absolutely can win the ACC and make it to the playoff, deservedly so.
Yeah. I hope that that's what happens. I think I didn't think it was more cool to me that Pitt is what they've been up until this point than did I think that they were going to maintain some level of undefeatedness or whatever. But it was a great look from SMU. Shows how good they are. Between this win, the Duke win, and the Louisville win, like SMU is real as shit. And they only lost to BYU by 3 points, which doesn't even matter for their whole season.
BYU loss is nice.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's a great look. So I'm just excited. Yeah, I'm excited about I know we've talked about this a couple of times, but like it's weird. I mostly don't care about the ACC. In the history of me watching college football, I usually kind of I'm aware of it. I'm understanding of it, but I mostly don't care. But like this year, I'm like I'm locked into what's happening in the ACC, and this SMU team is one of the reasons for sure. So great win by them. Yeah. They got Boston College. They go to Virginia. They have Cal at home. Those are 3 super winnable games like for them. Hopefully they do that. They get in the ACC championship game. They win that too because they could beat Miami. They could definitely beat Clemson. Like they're dangerous. So it would be fun to see them get a bye, which it would just their first year in the ACC to get a bye would be nuts.
Yeah, I think people don't understand. This is the first time any team has moved up to a power conference and gone 5-0 in the conference.
Right.
Like this is no small feat. No matter what you think about the ACC, top of the ACC is really good, and it's not like, I wouldn't have expected, like Oklahoma wasn't going to go 5-0 in the ACC. Texas maybe. But they weren't coming from a small conference. They were coming from a power conference. So it's a big deal. It's a nice season. This last one I want to talk about from last week, because I think for the most part we've covered all of the ones of super big note. South Carolina at home beats Texas A&M 44-20. So I was flipping through Instagram and I saw somebody incredulous about the fact that South Carolina is not ranked. They were like, oh my God, the teams that they lost to are like top 15 teams. And then they beat the crap out of Texas A&M, and they have beat the crap out of most everybody else they played. They played Alabama close. They didn't look great against Ole Miss. Beat the crap out of Akron. They played LSU close. They beat the crap out of Kentucky. They beat Old Dominion by 6 points. But they're just taking this win against Texas A&M as, oh yes, SC. And I'm like, look, USC is better than Oklahoma, which is probably not very good. They beat Texas A&M, but Texas A&M is also probably not very good. Like, I know Texas A&M is up there because they're in the SEC and they won some games, but they Their offense is not great. So it's like, yeah, USC or South Carolina is good, but are they top 25 team? No, I don't think so, because they played they beat Texas A&M, but they played Old Dominion close, and they lost to an Alabama team that just wasn't that great at the time, and they got housed by Ole Miss. Like, I don't think we need to be breaking credulity for South Carolina. They're fine where they are.
I didn't prior to you saying all of that, I would not have thought I was going to be on the side of the point that I'm about to make, but I disagree with you in that, like, Missouri shouldn't be in the top 25 of the college football playoff. They're not.
Don't disagree.
South Carolina at this point has a way better situation than Missouri. They're a better team. I think South Carolina is a better team than Colorado. I don't know if they're better than Washington State. They're not better than Louisville, and I don't think that they're better than Army. But the fact that Mizzou and Colorado, and then even Pitt, I don't want to say Pitt. Pitt's fine. But the fact that Mizzou and Colorado are as high as they both are, and South Carolina isn't there with a win against a Texas A&M team that is something. I don't know. I think I agree with you that I don't know if they're all the things, but I think that that's a legitimate win. And, like, Mizzou has looked like hot garbage at times. Like, they've looked like Vandy has looked better than Mizzou at times, for sure. And Colorado, I get it because you got Shedeur and you got Travis, and they're very crazy and they're doing stuff. I understand it, but, like, do they have a better situation going on than South Carolina at this point?
No. I don't think they do. And Mizzou got housed by Alabama and Texas A&M.
Yeah,
Mizzou got absolutely bone throttled.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think they're getting a lot of credit for a good Vandy win in overtime. They're getting way too much credit for a close Auburn win. They're getting way too much credit for a close home. Like, Missouri's the one that's bad. Missouri's the one that's just because we had them high, and so we think they're still good. We're going to keep them ranked.
Yeah, and that's a bummer.
But if Missouri wins out, they beat they're going to play SC in a couple of weeks, right?
Okay, yes.
So they should beat Oklahoma. If they lose to Oklahoma, this is a non-conversation, right? Even if it's close at Oklahoma, this might be a non-conversation. Then they have a chance to play South Carolina. If they beat South Carolina, fine. Like, if they win out, you want to stick them at 22 at the end of the year, fine. I guess I'm not going to be that frustrated about it.
Yeah.
It's not great, but once you start looking at the breadth and width of the teams with 2 losses, you're going to find teams with 2 really bad losses, losses that they don't want to have on the resume. So, whatever. Yeah,
I mean, I think you're, like, luckily for this goes back to the, like, suss out, argument. Like South Carolina goes to Vandy, has Mizzou at home, plays Wofford, whatever.
Wofford.
Yeah, right. and then they have Clemson to end the year. So it's like, if you win that out, then they're gonna be ranked.
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna get their just dues.
They also don't win these kind of seasons out. The thing that they do at South Carolina is they fuck this up.
Yeah.
So I'm not ready to feel bad for South Carolina yet. Like, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
If they beat Oklahoma and they beat Missouri and they're not ranked, then I got a problem. Right?
Yes.
Then if they win those 2 games and they're not 20th, I probably have a problem.
Yes.
Right? Even though neither of those teams are that great.
No.
But just because of the way that all of this is working, I got a problem. But for now, I'm fine with it. I think South Carolina is fine.
I also think they're fine. They beat the pants off of Oklahoma, 35-9, and so.
Oh yeah. So Oklahoma's bad.
Yeah, Oklahoma's bad, and
and Missouri might not beat the pants off of them.
No, I don't think they do. And they're the worst loss to South Carolina. So I feel for the person that was upset about this, because the worst loss that they have is Ole Miss. They lost 27-3, but they lost to Alabama by 2 points. They lose to LSU by 3 points.
Sure.
So, like, those are great wins. But again, if you beat Vandy, you beat Mizzou, you beat Clemson, you're going to be ranked anyways. You were never good enough to be in the playoff regardless. But so if you want it now or later, and you're upset about it not being now, fine, be upset about that. But it'll happen if it's going to happen.
Yeah. And quite frankly, if you just beat Alabama, because you could have, then you'd be 17 right now.
Oh, true.
Or something.
Exactly.
So
yeah, they're
higher than that,
100%.
actually.
Yeah.
If you beat that and you win that game and you win Texas A&M, then fuck, you're probably 12. Right? You might be in the playoff number right now. So if whatever. It's fine. All right. I want to let's just note the top of the conferences here because that makes some matter. In the American, you have Army and Tulane that are undefeated in the conference with Navy 1 loss, Memphis 2. Memphis had a bad, terrible, dumb loss, and they kind of screwed it up for themselves. So that race is Army versus Tulane in the American.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I think Army has everything that they need to win the American. I think that they can do it. I think Tulane is good, for sure, but I think Army
Tulane is very good.
Tulane
is very good.
If Army goes into the Notre Dame game, which is in a couple of weeks, and they don't get housed like Navy did, then I believe that they can beat Tulane. And Tulane, like you said, is legitimate. They can have enough. But I think Army has enough at this point to potentially win the American. Hopefully they do.
I think the Notre Dame game is going to be the thing that tells me what... Because
I agree.
I think the Army is better. Like, Army is good.
Yes.
Army is a good team, but do I feel like and it's hard, really. It's just hard because they haven't played anyone good for a long time. Maybe all season they haven't played anybody good.
Yeah.
The best team they've played is East Carolina, I think.
Wait,
and East Carolina, like Air Force is
East
bad.
Carolina,
UAB is
bad. Yeah.
Tulsa's bad. Temple is bad.
They
Rice is
basically have
okay.
Yeah, they've nobody.
Nobody, right? But they beat the shit out of nobody, which is valid.
They've trounced them.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I'm not taking that away from them. I'm just saying that's not enough right now yet for me to feel like, oh my gosh, they're ready. If they beat the mess out of North Texas, which North Texas is at least on the better side of good.
Yes.
Right? They beat the crap out of North Texas, and they just play Notre Dame nearer. They just play
they get
near
close.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They just hang out to Notre Dame. They should win out, even though the Navy game is going to be hot.
It's going to be hot.
The Army Navy game is going to be hot. Though by that point it won't matter. Will have already been in and played the conference championship game at that point, and we'll know whether they're in the playoff or not at that point. I think.
Yeah.
So the Army Navy game will just be for show. I guess maybe they won't. Maybe seeding will still be affected. But anyway, there was more words that I wanted to put into the fact that I think Tulane is really good, and I think
so
Tulane
too.
has been better and better going out. I think if you told me, and with a gun to my head, to pick one of these two teams at the for the conference championship game, I'd probably pick Tulane right now.
Yeah,
Like,
I think so too.
Their loss to Oklahoma doesn't look great. That was an Oklahoma that was kind of healthy, on the road, and Kansas State is good, even if they've had some bad losses.
Yeah, they are
And
good.
other than that, they murked the really bad teams and beat the good teams handily, right?
Yes.
Like North Texas is decent, and that one was close. They murked Charlotte. They beat Rice handily. They beat the shit out of UAB.
Yeah.
Beat the shit out of South Florida. They beat one loss. The only loss that they have, Louisiana, is to Tulane.
Yeah.
So I think Tulane is really good and a little bit more proven, maybe not. I mean, they lost to the really good teams they faced.
Yeah,
too.
but they've
so
had
it's close,
better.
which is great.
It's very close. Yes,
It's great.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. ACC, we kind of talked about. It's Miami and SMU. They went out and they'll play each other for the championship. You got Clemson and Pitt, one game out.
Yeah, hopefully.
Big Ten, Indiana and Oregon are your undefeated teams going away. Though those two teams Indiana and Oregon don't play. Indiana plays Ohio State. But I don't think they play Oregon. Is that right? Let me make sure. Yes, they play Ohio State. If Indiana plays Ohio State, they don't play Oregon. So Ohio State will really get to determine. That'll kind of be their tiebreaker because they'll lose the tiebreaker to Oregon, win the tiebreaker to Indiana, win the tiebreaker to Penn State. Ohio State and Penn State both have 1 loss in the conference. All 4 of those teams are good. And it's so interesting. You got those 4 teams, good. Then you got your next block of teams where you're like, okay, they're not bad. Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois, Washington, Wisconsin, Michigan. Then you get into the ones that are just like, oh, yeah, there's too many teams in this conference. So there's a lot of bad teams for good teams to beat up on.
Yeah.
Big 12, BYU is the undefeated team with Iowa State and Colorado next up. Kansas State is not eliminated, but they're functionally eliminated. Texas Tech as well, Cincinnati, a bunch of 2 losses.
Yeah, so I guess it'll be BYU against, assuming BYU continues to do what they're doing. Colorado's only 4-1 in conference. Iowa State's 4-1 in conference.
Colorado and Iowa State.
They're both the likeliest winners at this point, other than BYU.
Yeah. Well, and they don't play each other, so there'll be some kind of tiebreaker-y situation in play.
Yeah, but
which we're going to have a lot of. We're going to have a lot of them forever, which I don't love, but I don't have the energy to get into it.
Yeah, it's fine. We're just dealing, because we're not dealing with like East-West or split conferences. Like it is what it is, which is okay. But Colorado's got Texas Tech, Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. There's potentially a 1 loss in there, and then Iowa State has Kansas, Cincinnati, Utah, Kansas State, and that's also potentially a 1 loss in there. So yeah, we could be in a tiebreaker situation, but BYU looks like they could figure things out, because they end the year, they go to Utah, and I assume they're going to beat the pants off of Utah. But it's the holy war, so anything could happen. But I assume that's what's going to be.
Utah still, if there's any, they don't have anything else to get excited for this year, but they have that BYU game to be excited for. So maybe they'll pull out a miracle. Who knows?
And BYU, BYU's not totally out of it, because Arizona State is not. BYU's better than Arizona State, but Arizona State has it in them to win a game, and Houston too. Like Houston also is not good, but they've done this weird thing where they beat Kansas State, and Kansas State that's a legitimate team.
Right now, this minute, Houston has the best coach in the conference. And I say that with high regard to a lot of other coaches. Willie Fritz is amazing, and the proof that he's amazing is that he came to a terrible Houston team.
Yes.
And it basically took him 5 games to get shit straight. Right?
Yeah.
Now that getting blown out by Kansas is bad, but Kansas should have been good. But I'm gonna say getting blown out by Kansas is bad. But then they beat TCU, they beat Kansas State, they beat Utah. Like all of a sudden Houston is not awful. And Houston absolutely could win 2 of their last 3 handily and have a nice little record.
Yeah.
So
they could ruin people's days.
Nothing but respect for the Houston program. And I think that Utah better not sleep. And Kansas State better not sleep, and TCU better not sleep, and Kansas better not sleep, and Arizona better not sleep, because Houston's coming.
Yeah,
and
they're here.
Texas Tech is maybe coming. Kansas State's not going to go anywhere. I think Colorado next year will be the most interesting thing in the game, but we got plenty of time to talk about that. Anyway, that's enough about the Big 12, because it is interesting, though. Big 12 is interesting.
Yes, for sure.
Conference USA, you've got Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State are your undefeated teams. Sam Houston's 1 game out, with the rest at 2 or more.
Yeah, cool that Sam Houston is 4-1 in conference.
Yeah, Sam Houston's is good. Yeah. Sam Houston's a good team. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I would love to see the Hilltoppers get into the conference championship. That would be fun. Sam Houston get in there would be fun. I love Jacksonville State. So look, Conference USA it's not gonna equal playoff situations, but it's going to be a fun end of the year.
Yeah, not this year. Sam Houston gets to prove it. They get to play Liberty and Jacksonville State on the way out. So, man, that Jacksonville State game, November 23rd, I might not have to go to work that day. I might go to that game.
Yeah, you might as well.
I might go to the Sam Houston Jacksonville State game. It's like an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, that seems like a great.
I very much might go to that game.
Yeah,
all right, I got to get that on the schedule. Yeah, that'd be a good game. All right, in the MAC, Western Michigan having a great season, undefeated in the MAC. The MAC in general is not very good.
That's a bummer. Yeah.
And then you got a tie with Bowling Green, Miami, and Ohio. Toledo 2 losses in conference. A real surprise that they've fallen off. Real surprise out of Western Michigan, and Kent State may not win a game.
Yeah, Kent State. It's been rough. I think I'm turning into a Ball So Hard University a fan.
Sure.
They're not. Sure. They're perfectly Mac-ish. They're 100%.
Yeah.
They're the pivotal mid Mac team for sure. But Bowling Green has had elements of fun throughout this year.
Oh yeah,
all throughout.
Yeah,
so I think they're very dangerous if they can get things figured out. They got direction. They just beat directional Central Michigan. They got another directional Michigan in Western coming up. They go to Ball State, and then they got Miami of Ohio. Those are things. So I would love to see. I just had a lot of fun watching early game bowling or early season Bowling Green. I hope that they get things figured out and they get it done. But I would love to also see a directional Michigan team win the MAC. But it's the most MAC season of MAC seasons.
Yeah. Well, Northern Illinois and Western Michigan are playing as we speak, as well as Ohio and Kent are playing as we speak as well. Just a note. All right. Let's talk about the Mountain West. You've got your two undefeated teams in conference are Boise State and Colorado State. Now, does Colorado State play UNLV? Let's check the
They do not.
Real quick.
They do not. No.
Interesting. That is very interesting.
They have Wyoming at home. They go to Fresno State. They got Utah State at home. Those are winnable games at this point.
Colorado State could just make it so that nobody else has got a chance because UNLV didn't have to play them, and UNLV had to play Boise State, which kind of sucks.
It really does.
It kind of sucks for UNLV.
Yeah, it really does because otherwise they're for sure in the Mountain West Championship game, and then we're watching Boise State UNLV again. But I mean, they got beat already, so I guess we watched our pre-championship game.
Yeah, because you know what? I guess they had an eliminator and they lost it. Yeah, so fair enough.
And one of our previous arguments was UNLV playing. They play where the Raiders play in Vegas. They no longer play on campus. And our standing argument was me on the side of why not play where the Raiders play, and you were on the side of it's better to have something on campus, which I now understand your point on that. But, so to that point, like it was as neutral sidey of a game as they could wish for, and they got beat by Boise State. In that situation, because I mean that's Boise State. That's an hour flight or whatever, or they rent a bus or whatever. So I mean that might have been our pre-championship game, honestly. Because if Colorado State makes it, like they're going to get I don't know this, but I feel pretty confident that they're going to get housed by Boise State. Yeah.
If Colorado State makes it, did they already play?
I don't know if they did.
No, they didn't.
No.
Yeah. So if Colorado State makes it, then fine. That Boise State will be the last team they didn't play. So they'll play Boise State, and then if they win, then they win. Great. Yeah. And you had a nice little season, and Boise State's got to win that game if you want to play in the playoffs. So that's fine.
Yep.
In your Southeastern Conference, we have 5 teams with 1 loss. There's a bunch of tiebreaker situations in play, but you got Georgia and Texas A&M at the top at 5-1. You got Tennessee at 4-1, Texas at 3-1, LSU at 3-1. And then you have another gaggle of 2-loss teams, and then your South Carolinas and below. After that, Mississippi State, rather bad.
Yeah, I assume that the SEC gets 2 teams in the playoff. I don't know. I don't know if I love whoever it is. The champ obviously gets in, but then whoever loses the champ, like if we can assume that if it's Texas, well, Texas and Georgia play each other, right? They already did play each other.
They played. Yeah,
they played each other. Yes. So and then Texas won. So but there's based on that, that's their only loss and their one thing. Tennessee is not good enough, I don't think.
Right.
And also is not good enough. LSU is also not good enough. But so I think we might be in a situation where Texas and Georgia both get in, and I would be okay with it. I really hope Alabama doesn't get in. I don't think that they're deserving as much at this point. I like DeBoer. I like what's going on, but they're not as deserving as them getting in lieu of somebody else from another conference getting in. I would be upset by that. I would understand it, but I'd be upset by that. And then Texas A&M, LSU, and Tennessee all are not good enough, I don't think.
Yeah, so all of these teams have flashes of being fine. So if you throw out Alabama, I'm just going to throw out Alabama for now. I'm not, just because I think they're not important in this conversation. But LSU plays Florida, Vandy, and Oklahoma. So LSU could win out, not make the conference championship game, and still make the playoff. as a 2-loss team. So I suspect that that's probably what's going to happen. Is you'll have the SEC champion, you have the SEC runner-up, and you'll have LSU. Will be your team. Because Tennessee plays Georgia, Texas A&M plays Texas. Everybody else kind of has an eliminator. So those 4 teams ahead of LSU, 2 of them are going to get eliminated in head-to-head, and then one of them is going to play in the conference championship game. I'm assuming it's not LSU, but if it's LSU, then one of those other teams will be the team that gets it with 2 losses. But I suspect it's going to be that one of those top 4 teams are going to play each other. The other 2 are going to have lost, and then LSU is going to win out and take the third.
And I understand it, but it's a bummer. But again, back to the defense of the playoff in and of itself. If LSU gets there, and I think that's fine if they do. I don't love it, but I get it. Based on the top 25 and everything, that's okay. But assuming that all that happens, if LSU is good enough to win, then to win their first round, then they deserve to be there. But I don't love it. I think if they jump, even if they jump A&M, but if they jump SMU, SMU wins, then it's fine. But if they jump Notre Dame, I'd be upset about that. If they jump Indiana, I'd be upset about that. I don't think that they do, but they're out. They're far enough out based on the rankings that we have thus far that I hope that they stay out.
Yeah, I think that they won't jump anybody. They'll be like the 11. I don't imagine they'll jump anybody. They'll just stay in that space. But obviously right now, the second, there's four SEC teams that will be in the playoff.
Wait, no, just Georgia, Texas, Alabama.
Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama.
Oh yeah, Tennessee. Yeah. Okay, so that's
Georgia,
all fine,
Texas,
but
Tennessee, Alabama.
But I think that it should either be. I'm okay. I don't think Alabama deserves to be there. I don't think that they should be there. I think that's
I think Alabama probably ends up falling away. Probably, but maybe not.
Maybe not. I think it should be either LSU or Alabama or A&M, and then Tennessee. If Tennessee wins out, then I'm okay with it. I also don't love it, but I'm okay with it. And then Georgia and Texas obviously should be there.
Well, if Tennessee wins out, then that means they beat Georgia.
Yeah.
They beat Vandy.
Yeah.
And then they probably have to. And then they have to play somebody in the conference championship game as well. And so if they come second place there after beating Georgia, a close loss to Arkansas is not great, but it's not awful.
No, it's not bad.
They beat an NC State team that was overranked. They beat an Oklahoma team that was overranked. They beat an Alabama team that was overranked. But those aren't bad teams, right? No. In the grand scheme of things.
Those are good wins.
It's fine. Yeah. It's fine. It's going to be fine. I'm fine with it. If they travel to Georgia and beat Georgia, whatever.
Yeah,
then you
totally.
Get in the playoff.
I'm with you. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, whatever. All right, that was the SEC. Sun Belt, our last conference in the conference with divisions. Georgia Southern and Marshall are both 1 loss in the East, and Louisiana is undefeated in the West with Arkansas State at 1 loss in the West. Arkansas State, not great. Louisiana is by far the best team in that side. UL Monroe's taken a couple of losses after having a really nice beginning of the season. Georgia Southern has been mostly the class of the conference, but they're not so much better than Marshall that Marshall doesn't have an opportunity to win that side. Marshall does not play them in the regular season, but they do play Coastal. They have to travel to ODU, and they have to travel to James Madison, who's fallen off for sure, but not bad. James Madison's lost games they shouldn't have lost, but they are a good team still. It's no trip to St. Mary's School of the Blind, that's for
sure. Very true. Yes. And Marshall beat Georgia Southern. No, they lost to Georgia Southern. I'm just kidding. I thought that they had beat them. So they lost to Georgia Southern. So Georgia Southern is the winner of the East as it is. But I think regardless, the Raging Cajuns probably beat whoever they get.
Yeah. They've shown themselves to be the class of the conference so far.
For sure.
Sorry, excuse me. Okay, what have we got for the upcoming week? As I mentioned, Northern Illinois and Western Michigan are playing. That's a big one for Western. They're up at home so far. Kent's trying to not go over, but they're already down 10-0 to Ohio in the first.
Bummer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad. I know. It's sad.
Game of note: Florida travels to Texas. Florida's, I think, on their third string, maybe quarterback, and Texas is a 21.5-point favorite. But it's just an interesting matchup. As far as a helmet matchup goes,
yeah, it's cool.
Interesting enough.
It's cool that we're in a situation now in college football that we're seeing Florida Texas non-bowl game playing each other. So it's fun. Florida's going to get fucking bodied, but it'll still kind of cool.
Yep. Miami is an 11-point favorite traveling to Georgia Tech. That's not a gimme. That should be a solid, nice win for Miami if they get it, which I expect they get it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like Vegas likes Miami, and I think that 11 feels fine. But Georgia Tech has had moments throughout this year that have been dangerous enough. So like Miami doesn't get got, or it doesn't really put everything together, then they can get got.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, Georgia Tech can win. They absolutely can win. Let's see. This is just a notable line because it's the biggest one. I don't know if it's the biggest one of the week, but it's the biggest one I've seen so far. Ohio State is a 38-point favorite at home against a bad Purdue team.
That's unfortunate for the Boilermakers. I think that's a good bet, though. I don't think that Ohio State has 38 in them. Like, I think they beat the pants off of Purdue, but I expect that it's 21 or something. I think that's a good betting game for sure.
I don't know how to call it because I feel like this is one of those possible get-right games where they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to make sure everything's working, so we're going to win this game 52-12. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Army travels to North Texas. Army is a 6-point favorite. North Texas is 5-3. North Texas is no joke. Like I already mentioned, this will be a prove me win for Army. If they come out and just smash North Texas, then I can't say anything about them at this point.
Yeah. I think Army is as you know, they are who we thought they were. If they go in and win by a touchdown against North Texas, because I think North Texas is as good as Army. I think they're around for sure. So hopefully Army can get things done. But North Texas is perfectly capable of winning this game.
Yeah, super solid squad. Yep, absolutely. Clemson travels to Virginia Tech. Clemson is a 6.5-point favorite. I think this will be a good game. I'm actually kind of excited about it.
Yeah, I just hope it's rocking. I mean, it always is at Va Tech, but like, I hope Enter Sandman is just ringing in the Clemson helmets, and they're just trying to figure things out. I assume Clemson wins, but like Virginia Tech they're not a schlubby squad, this year.
I don't know about either of them, to be honest.
I honestly don't either, but I would love for Virginia Tech to get the win at home. That would be super fun.
Iowa State is a 2.5-point favorite at Kansas. That's quite a line. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, that's Vegas knows. That's a scary line to me because it feels like Vegas knows something I don't know. I feel like Iowa State should win by a touchdown at least. It should be like 7.5 or something. But Vegas, that's just frightening to me. I don't know how to feel about that because Kansas doesn't seem like they can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Michigan is a 15-point underdog traveling to Indiana. I think Indiana should wipe the field with them.
God, I hope.
I think this is what I think. I think that Indiana is going to try to beat Michigan worse than Oregon did, just to prove a point.
I hope so.
They have the Oregon game on film, and just to prove it, because the more I see about Kirk Cignetti, the more I think he's exactly the kind of guy to do that.
Yeah, I hope. I have never wanted somebody to like personify their brand more than that. Like I hope Indiana just beats Michigan by 35, like just something gross. Like it's the fourth quarter and they're up by 21. They don't even need to score, but they're just going to do it to just go, you guys are a bunch of bitches.
Yeah, just say, hey, we are elite. Here we are. So that's interesting. That game is super interesting to me.
Yeah.
Georgia faces Ole Miss. Georgia is a 3-point favorite on the road at Oxford.
I think Jackson Dart and Beck are the same guy. We talked about this before. I think they're kind of the same guy. I assume what we saw Kirby do against Texas was bring out a defense. He has a defense in his toolbox that he stores in the depths of his garage that he decides to pull out every once in a while. And I hope that that's what happens because fuck Lane Kiffin. But regardless of that, I think, regardless of my emotions towards Lane Kiffin and his bitch ass, I think Georgia has everything defensively to smother Jackson Dart and get the win here. 3 points, Vegas. I feel that feels fine to me just because I don't know about the Georgia offense, but I think Georgia wins this game. I suspect they win it by 7.
So Georgia is a better LSU, but they're not so dissimilar to LSU.
Yeah.
Like because I've watched Ole Miss at LSU and saw LSU have to come back and win. Like, Georgia's offense isn't that much better than LSU's offense.
No.
It's not that much more interesting than LSU's offense. But Georgia's defense is better than LSU's defense.
Yes.
So I think it stays close. I think the fact that Georgia's offense isn't very good means that this is going to potentially be a close game. Though would I fall over? Look, I wouldn't fall over for either result. I wouldn't fall over if Ole Miss wins this game by 14 because just the offense is just working.
Yeah.
Right? And I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia wins this game 21-0. Like, no result would surprise me. It's all in play, but I expect Georgia's a touchdown better. So
I'm with you. I also agree with you. Like Ole Miss, because that Georgia defense, it's just Kirby has pulled it out before, but it's not a regular, it's not a staple like it has been in the past. So they could, if they show that they're not that team, then Ole Miss is capable, even though fuck.
Ole Miss can absolutely pull an Alabama on them.
Yes,
for sure,
100%.
Right, they can definitely do that.
Jackson Dart is good enough to do that.
Yeah. Yep. Colorado is a 3.5-point favorite on the road at Texas Tech, which again should be a pretty decent game.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech is good enough to win. I assume the Shador Hunter factor will power Colorado through, but this will be a good afternoon game.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's a very interesting flip back game.
Yeah.
Oregon is a 26-point favorite at home against Maryland, a Maryland team that always. I want to say always underwhelms, but I guess if you do the same thing every year, it can't be that you always underwhelm.
Yeah.
That Maryland is exactly what Maryland is.
Yeah, for sure. And this one is, I don't know if this always applies, but like having to fly the 6-hour flight it's going to be from Maryland to Eugene is going to be, actually you can't even fly into Eugene, I don't think. So you probably got to fly to Portland and then drive 2 hours to Eugene. So it's a lot of travel, and Maryland's not that good. I assume Oregon just beats the pants off of them. 25 and a half is what I'm seeing, and that seems reasonable.
Yeah. In a game that will be absolutely nuts. Like, here's the thing about this game. Like, when I don't even want to say this the way I'm thinking it because I don't want to even invite an argument. This is a playoff implication game late for teams that aren't going to play in the SEC championship game that matters a lot. Alabama travels to LSU, where Alabama's a 3-point favorite. This is going to be hype.
Yeah.
LSU, Baton Rouge is going to be absolutely out of their goddamn minds.
Yeah, it's going to be rocking. They're good enough to beat Alabama. I don't think that they beat Alabama, but Alabama's been shaky, and if Alabama loses this game, man, I assume DeBoer's house has at least gotten one egg thrown at it over the course of this year, and so it's not going to slow it down if he loses. But yeah, I mean, look, Death Valley is going to be rocking.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely crazy atmosphere. It'll be nuts, and that'll be exciting. And I don't know that the football will even be very good.
It might not
be. It'll be important football, which is fun.
Yes. A good late game.
Yeah. Oklahoma's a 3-point favorite at Missouri, so that tells you what Vegas thinks about how good Missouri is.
Missouri's not good. I don't. And also Oklahoma's
not good.
Yeah, for sure. So I hope Missouri just gets beat, so we can just be done with this. We can just get them out of there. We can be done with Missouri. We can just be done with it.
Yep. We don't have to talk about them again. No, I don't disagree. Yep. Boise has a home game against Nevada. They're a 24-point favorite. It's just going to be a Genty watch just to see how many yards he can put on for the Heisman campaign. I think at this point, as long as he has just decent rushing numbers, I think he's going to be invited to New York.
Yeah, he definitely gets the invitation.
Not going to win the Heisman.
Yeah,
but he'll get invited, which is cool.
He should, as long as he's there. I'll be happy about it. He deserves to be in the room. Will he win it? No, but he deserves to be.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, he won't. But The Holy War, BYU at Utah, where BYU is just a 4-point favorite on the road at Utah. Maybe just because of the nature of the Holy War, or more likely, nobody understands what BYU is.
I think that's. It seems because Utah's offense can them and their
future lawn maintenance supervisor and quarterback.
Yep. That's the one. Like Utah's got zero offense. So I assume BYU wins it. I mean, it's a not even an hour bus ride. I mean, I guess from Provo it's about 40 minutes or whatever bus ride. So I assume BYU goes in. But this is the first Holy War in a while, right? This is the first one in 5 years or something like that since the breakup of the Mountain West, maybe?
I thought they played once.
They might have played once, but this is like the first one in a long time. So, and that's reputable, and I think that's why Vegas is anticipating the hype around all of it, because Rice Eccles, regardless of how trash Utah has been, Rice Eccles will be rocking for this. If Utah fans wanted anything out of Whittingham, out of what they are as Utah fans, it's this game. That's the only thing they've fully put in their stock of the only thing. This is their championship game. So I understand why Vegas is doing it. It seems like BYU wins by 2. I think BYU wins by 14, but I get it.
So do I. They played in 21. Okay. BYU won that game 26-17. Before that, they played in 2019. Utah had a streak of 10 straight, 9 straight, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 straight.
Yeah.
Before BYU won it. So that game is happening. It's it's only notable for us. I guess it's notable because for BYU to have the season that they want, having a big win over their major rival would make it sweet for them to make the playoff and have that happen. And they just need to win. They just need to beat Utah so that their chance of playing in the conference championship game is there. So
yeah, totally. And this isn't. I know what I'm about to say is going to be ridiculous, but this is Iron Bowl-esque in that this is within the same state. It's a bus ride there. This is as rivalry game as you can get.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. This is as important to these teams in the area as they could be. So, yeah. Understood. All right. Well, everybody, enjoy it. Enjoy the weekend. We are now into the playoff conversation portion of college football, which is super exciting. I'm super excited to see how it turns out. Even though I know there's something's going to happen that's going to piss me off, I'm still excited about it.
It's great. Honestly, it's great. I mean, as many things as we've talked about, so many things will get sussed out by play on the field versus news articles and rankings and all that kind of stuff. A lot of this is going to be, but when we get to the end of the year, we'll know who did the things based on the play, not based on the ideas, which is great. So, have a good week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.